Good? Okay, good, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular scheduled Taber Town Council meeting for January 27th, 2020. We'll call meeting to order and ask for an adoption of the agenda as presented, please. Councillor Garner,
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item number 3, adoption of the minutes. Item 3.1, minutes of regular meeting of council January 13th, 2020. Mr. Armfield.
If there's any amendments that council sees that would like to be made, please let us know. Otherwise, they're yours to approve.
Right, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held July 13th, 2020 as presented.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? Do you have a question, Councillor Becker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Should be January, not July, Council Bruin.
I'm sorry?
Council Bruin, you said July 2020. It should be January.
Oh, I'm sorry. January 13th. I'm thinking it's summer, I guess.
All right, okay. Friendly amendment motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4, business arising from the minutes. Item 4.1, SIWA update and energy from waste discussion. Mr. Armfield.
At the last council meeting at the standing items, Councillor Bruin made a motion to direct administration to investigate how the Southern Alberta Energy from Waste Association is proceeding and how far along they are with their project, and look into alternative energy programs for power. Ms. DeBona has some information in that regard.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bona.
Yes, so good afternoon, Council and Mayor. As of October, the SEWA had only shortlisted 3 potential sites for the energy from waste facility. They had 11 potential sites. They narrowed it down to 3, the Wheatland County, Vulcan County, and County of Newell. They were hoping to announce a preferred site by end of November, but so far they haven't released an official announcement. They're all counties, and so far they're hoping to pick one. They've gotten a grant to do that. Each county has done a detailed report with Tetra Tech, I believe, to list which one is the most preferable. But they haven't announced anything yet. It's basically all that they've done so far. Then, of course, once they pick the site, they have to do a lot of research to figure out which type of waste to energy facility they're going to build. And as far as I believe, they have to then get the funding required to build it. But they haven't announced any of that yet either. And that's what SEWA is doing. As far as waste to energy alternatives that we could look into, we could go to a symposium that they're having for the Recycling Council of Alberta in March. If that's something council feels that we should be looking into, we could go see what is on the horizon for waste energy.
Just to clarify, is that an Edmonton location?
It's at St. Albert and
St.
Edmonton.
Albert, okay. All
That's
right,
in
thank you.
March.
Okay.
March 12th, 2020.
Any other questions? Councillor Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for your presentation there. Nothing much has changed with SEWA in the last 6 years since I was on that committee, it seems like. What I was looking more for was something, has anyone approached us for combustible or energy efficient sort of technology for waste?
For the town
Yes.
to do? No. They haven't really approached us on anything in that regard.
Great. Any other questions? Somebody prepared to make a motion? Councillor Joel.
I'll make the motion that council accept this report for information purposes only.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 5, bylaws. Item 5.1, Chief Administration Officer Bylaw 1/2020. Mr. Armfield.
Yeah, I'm going to call Ms. Megan Brennan up, please. Just as by way of introduction, there's been a number of policies that council has passed recently that really made the previous town manager bylaw, I believe how it was to be referred to, as obsolete. And Ms. Megan Brennan has been putting together some information to bring the CAO bylaw up to where we need it. Go ahead, please.
Afternoon, Council. So yes, as Mr. Armfeld stated, the policies have required some changes to the new CAO bylaw that's proposed before you, as well as the new Municipal Government Act. So we relied on that heavily for a lot of the wording that you see within here. I'll let you know that we've also consulted with 9 different municipalities' CAO bylaws, or whatever the equivalent's name was. Specifically Edmonton and Red Deer. We also looked at other communities like Banff, Black Diamond, Hinton, Cochrane, Canmore, for the like. And you'll see within your agenda package some of the more important sections that we've highlighted in there. And I know Council might have questions about the emergency expenditure. So we put $100,000 as sort of a safeguard for that, with the check and balance that the CAO would report to you should that ever be used. And for context, when we looked at the city of Edmonton, their emergency expenditure for their town city manager was $2 million. So we decided a little bit less was required for us. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Great, thank you. Questions arising? Councillor Strauss.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Your Worship, just Megan here. Management of administration personnel, item 7.18. It says replace existing vacant positions in the approved salary range. All positions must receive prior approval of the council. So is that for, clarification on that, we approve the person that's hired? The wording on that is little.
It is a little vague, and we could certainly change that if council would like. So all positions, I would understand it to be read in through the context of other municipalities, is that council approves the departments and the different structure of the municipality, and they understand the positions that are involved, and it's up to the CAO to fill those positions. So you wouldn't be hiring, no. That's not the intention of this section, but we could certainly amend it if you find it.
When I read this, it seemed like, like the interviews are done and then council, says, okay, this is who we're going to hire. I mean, that was my interpretation of it, but I think maybe, it's not the way it's supposed to be there, but that's the way I read it, so.
Mr. Towns.
I read it slightly different, Councillor Strovis said that it was just the position, not the person. And it states in there, all positions must receive prior approval of council. So the position gets approved by us, but not the person.
All right.
That's how I interpreted it.
All right. Any other questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Towns.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we give first reading. Where's that? I got it here. That council gives first reading to the proposed Chief Administrative Officer Bylaw 1-2020 at this meeting.
All right. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Someone prepared to make the second motion? Councillor Garner.
Your worship, I can make that motion that council gives second reading to the proposed Chief Administrative Officer Bylaw 1-2020 at this meeting.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Someone prepared to make the third required motion? Councillor Strauss.
It's that council unanimously agrees to proceed to third reading and final reading to the proposed Chief Administrative Office Bylaw 1-2020 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And the fourth required motion, Councillor Firth.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council gives third and final reading to the Chief Administrative Officer Bylaw 1-2020 at this meeting.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
On to item 5.2, Fee Bylaw 2-2020. Mr. Armfield.
There's a couple of items that required the updating of the fee bylaw. Is this, who's handling this one? Parks and Rec or Finance primarily? Finance? Okay, Mr. Orwa?
It is a finance function, but I believe it touches on recreation. So already the fee bylaw has already been passed, but we would like to incorporate the fee assistance that was approved by council December the 16th for it to be effective. So if at all maybe there's specific questions to the fee assistance, that's when the recreation comes in.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as I'm concerned, we discussed this. We approved it at one of the meetings we had. I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right,
Mr. Mayor, I move that council gives first reading to fee bylaw 20-2020 at this meeting.
motion on the table. Any further discussion? Councillor Firth.
It's 2-2020, Councillor Beckering.
Sure, okay.
Friendly amendment noted and accepted. All right. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Someone prepared to make the second motion? Councillor Thames.
Mayor, I move that council give second reading to fee bylaw 2-2020 at this meeting.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Someone prepared to make the third required motion? Councillor Firth.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council unanimously agrees to proceed to third and final reading to fee bylaw 2-2020 at this meeting.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Did we not need unanimous consent first?
That is the unanimous consent one.
What was that? Sorry, carry on.
All in favor? Unanimously carried. Thank you.
Sorry.
And the fourth required motion, Councillor Garner.
Make that, Your Worship, the council gives third and final reading to fee bylaw 2-2020 at this meeting.
Right, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Great, thank you. On to item 5.3, first reading of land use bylaw amendment bylaw number 3-2020. Mr. Armfield.
Yes, we've had an opportunity for a development in town that would need a change in the land use bylaw to facilitate that development. Ms. Monks, please go ahead.
Thank
Monks.
you. Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. So administration has been approached by a party wishing to develop lands that are currently zoned as R4, which is our residential medium density district. While looking at options for development, the applicant has indicated that they would like the option of providing housing, but also some form of neighborhood development such as medical offices, pharmacy, minor retail. The development that's being considered would fall under a neighborhood commercial type of development, allowing for amenities in a neighborhood without being too intrusive, impactful, or loud. Under our existing land use bylaw, this form of development is included as a discretionary use in both the residential single dwelling, R1, and residential single and two dwelling district, R2. This allows a developer the ability to provide these amenities in a neighborhood as long as they meet the requirements of the land use bylaw with regard to location and intention. The application must then go to the Municipal Planning Commission for approval as a discretionary development, and an appeal period is followed. Administration would be in support of this application. Often residential developments in medium and high density actually have more impact on a neighborhood than a proposed service or commercial amenity, with the requirement for any proposed development having to provide a plan for MPC approval. There would be safeguards in place to ensure that the development was planned in such a manner as to be a benefit to the area. Administration is requesting first reading being given to this bylaw. Once that has occurred, circulations will then be sent out to households within 100 meters of existing R4 zoned sites, and advertising would be provided in the Taber Times seeking public input. The application would then come back to council at the February 10th meeting for a public hearing to be held and potentially for second and third reading to occur, thereby allowing the application to proceed. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Monks, did you say 100 meters within the proposed development?
Yes, that's typically we do like a 100-meter circle, and we personally send to those homes, and then we also place an advertisement in the Taber Times.
Sir Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion right now that council gives first reading to land use amendment bylaw 3-2020.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? Councillor Stravas.
Your Worship, I just want to let you know that the Municipal Planning Commission looked at this and they are in favor of this. They think this is a good area and a good fit for the neighborhood, so it's good.
All right, thank you. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item number 6, action item 6.1, Kraft Hockeyville. Mr. Armfield.
It's like Ms. Brennan is coming back to give council an update on our desire to win the Kraft Hockeyville and see if we can win $250,000. Go ahead, Ms. Brennan.
Yes, hello again, council. So I'm quite certain you've seen rumblings of this around the community, but we thought it best to officially let you know that we've been nominated for Kraft Hockeyville. Any arena in Canada is able to nominate themselves, and the public gets involved in the voting and the rallying process, which is the phase that we're in currently. They submit stories and photos and videos and basically support the arena in the hopes that we can win not only $250,000, but also a potential to host a preseason NHL game, which would be a lot of fun to host here. So with that, the rallying ends on February 9th, and then a judgment occurs to all the arenas in Canada. And that the judging is done by the sponsors, the NHL Kraft, and the panel that they create, after which March 13th that ends, the top 4 will be announced. And then there's a voting period, and it's not a typo in the agenda. The voting opens March 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and it closes the next day, the 28th, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the 28th is when the winner is announced. So a bunch of staff throughout multiple departments decided that this was a good idea to throw our hat in the ring. We wouldn't lose anything if we didn't win Kraft Hockeyville, but we have an extraordinary potential if we were to win it. And it's a great thing to see our community rally around a community center that's meant a lot to Taber over the years. So. Of course, I've spoken with the Recreation Department, and should we win the $250,000, council would be made aware of any renovations that money would go towards in the arena. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Thames.
I have a question, just a comment. Last week, 94.1, because I listened to 94.1 on my way to work, we're all in favor of Taber's thing, and then today their announcer says, well, we should forget about Taber because the Logan Boulet Arena in Lethbridge is also nominated. So I think we really need to rally the troops this time.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Brenner, who nominated the town of Taber?
Anyone in the public can nominate the arena. So I can't say for certain.
Our department internally, we worked with Erica in finance, the grant department, and economic development and communications, and we did internally.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's a fantastic thing. We have to get behind this as a council, same as the Coors Light banquet. I'd love to see a town effort to maybe take some pictures from a drone and say, welcome to Taber, this is our arena. So that's a suggestion I would make, that we could set something up, two hockey sticks or something in the parking lot, and let's make this go.
Duly noted, Councillor Bruin.
I think it's a great idea. It's been a big thing the last few years, Canada-wide actually. So for Taber to be part of this as a potential winner is great. And Taber's always been a big hockey town there, and I think there may even be some interest in rallying some of the local teams around here to beyond some of the stories, as Councillor Bruin said, maybe some kind of a photo op opportunity to deal with that and promote Taber in the hockey world that much better, and put us that much brighter on the map.
If I may, I should also have mentioned that our Recreation Department did reach out to a number of community groups, and we've also had local businesses get involved doing promotions and posting and rallying as well on our behalf. So the community support has been incredible, as it always is.
Great, perfect, thank you. Councillor Garner?
Oh, I'm just prepared to make a motion.
I think Councillor Stravos maybe had a comment or question.
Just wanted to make a comment. We have some notable past hockey players from this area. Devin Sadaguchi, Brandon Davidson, and like even Chris Versteeg that runs. There's some.
Darren Stokes.
Pardon me.
Darren Stokes.
Darren Stokes. Yeah, that perhaps they should be contacted, and they should put their 2 cents worth, and because I gather that's what they do. People, go onto the site and put different things on there.
Yes, that's correct.
Just to clarify, is there a short interview process also? Are they able to do that? Or is it just comments and or?
Stories,
Photos.
videos up to 2 minutes, photos. They can even post small little notes as well. And there's also voting, so the public can go in, register, and you can like and react to all the posts that are already on there, and those tally up for points as well.
I see. All right. Great. Thank you. Councillor Garner.
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion at this time
All right.
that the council accepts the Kraft Hockeyville update for information.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Councillor Bruin, you had a question?
Yeah, I say let's go for it. Before we go on, let's do this.
We've set the wheels in motion. I think
Yes,
we're
there
well
we
on our
go.
way. All right. Good. Thank you. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Brennan. On to item 6.2, Veterans News Advertising Request. Mr. Armfield.
Yes, I got a call about 3 weeks ago from this news agency, wondering if the town of Tabor would be wanting to put an ad in their newspaper, engage Ms. Brennan to follow up with them and prepare an RFD for council to see if it was something that council wanted to do. Ms. Brennan, maybe if you can bring up the newspaper itself that they might be considering putting an article or advertisement in. Sorry.
Scrolling.
Go ahead.
So, as Mr. Armfeld indicated, we very rarely get requests from outside organizations to advertise, so that's why we're bringing it forward to council's attention. We did some research into this, and it is a free magazine that's provided to all legions in Canada, so that goes through all the provinces and territories. And we really did our research and looked, and we couldn't find any municipality that advertises in this magazine. Therefore, on that basis, administration is not recommending that we go forward with advertising in this publication, just because of the return on investment. To advertise our services to someone in Newfoundland, for example, doesn't make a great deal of fiscal sense to your administration.
Councillor Thames.
I totally agree with your recommendation not to do this. Every time I see one of these, it's there. Here's this outfit out to make a buck, and it's really not. They're really not saying what they're doing. They're just out there to sell advertising. So I totally agree to just step away from it.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions arising? Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I would disagree with Councillor Tam. I agree with the administration's assessment regarding an economic benefit. There is no economic benefit in my view. However, it is a veterans paper, and we at least can try to support that paper, because advertising, as we all know, pays for the distribution and making of that paper. So I would not be opposed for council to support a half page for 1 year, but there's no motion here.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Chavez.
Your Worship, I think probably for the half page, the $800, if we give it to the local Legion and told them to do something constructive for the veterans here in town, we would get far more exposure for that than advertising in this newspaper, and I cannot support this.
All right. Any other questions arising? Councillor Bruin.
I'm going to say I have to agree with Mr. Beckering here. I think anytime we support the Legion in this, we should. It goes to all legions in southern Alberta. They all see Tabor supports it, so I don't think it's a bad thing. I'd be on board to support this.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Chavez?
Just a comment, you realize the local Legion wouldn't get anything out of this except free newspapers.
For me, I actually agree with Councillor Beckering as well, to a certain degree, as well as Councillor Chavez, and maybe actually, all things considered, leaning towards Councillor Chavez has suggested some kind of a support in lieu of maybe that much more beneficial for our local Legion branch, and if we're all so inclined. Councillor Thames.
think we just accept this for information and carry on. And then if we decide to go support the Legion in some way, shape, or form, that we maybe should be, having a conversation with the Legion as to what we can do to help, rather than to say, well, we're not going to do this, but let's give the Legion some money. I think we just need to accept this for information and move on. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion that we accept this for information only.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Bruin.
I'll say I won't support the motion to move on. I think we should make a decision tonight and get it done. It's not a lot of money. If we can support the Legion, I think we should do it. It's not all about Tabor.
All right, Councillor Towns.
I don't disagree with you about supporting the Legion, but I don't think we should be doing that until we have had a conversation with the Legion.
That may be a good option also. Any other comments? All right. Once again, there is a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Unanimously. Opposed? Opposed. But carried. All right. Thank you. On to item 6.3, Seniors Week 2020, Expressions of Interest. Mr. Armfeldt.
Just getting caught up. Ms. Van Ham had put this one together. Really what it is a request for municipalities that might be interested in hosting Seniors Week. There was an attachment that came along with the RFD looking for council's direction on whether you would like administration to pursue this or not.
All right. Any questions or comments? Just to clarify, I believe we have attempted this once or twice, have we, in the past? Is that accurate?
Yeah, we've applied a couple of times, I think, in the past. I think there's been twice that we've put in an application for Seniors Week.
This wasn't 100% clear when I was going through that as far as exactly if we were successful, what we would be doing in the co-host capacity. There's a lot of information there. I may have just missed that, but I just wasn't clear on exactly what they were asking if we were, whoever happens to be successful anyway.
I could, Mayor. Prokop, on page 5, it lists the roles and responsibilities of both Alberta Seniors in Housing and the community or the organization. So the grant would be provided by Alberta Seniors in Housing, participating in the event, and the organization that successfully wins the bid. There is a requirement for planning the event with the housing group, promoting the event locally to ensure success, obtaining community support and sponsorship, volunteers if needed, liaising with the community groups and municipal staff, coordinating activities and services, and then providing a summary of attendees potentially and background information for the application.
Okay, because I guess my question, some of this we're already doing, right? We do a variety of this anyway, currently.
We have a good relationship with the senior organizations in town, and we are liaising with them.
Yeah, we're always involved. We're invited to the events and the kickoff, etc. So we are doing some of this already, but again, it's, I guess you're just looking for an enhancement with some more involvement, basically, is how you're explaining that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there would be additional involvement from the municipality and a focused for this particular event.
Great. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments arising? Councillor Bruin.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just trying to further on your ask there. Like, what does this involve the community? Like, what do we have to do to make this happen? Or is there a cost? What happens with this?
To provide some context, Alberta Seniors in Housing does this every year. And so they have a pretty established framework for their celebration that they roll out into the community that has been granted the official hosting and opening of Seniors Week. So the town of Tabor would be engaging with Alberta Seniors in Housing and ultimately putting together the program that they requested be put together for the opening of Seniors Week. So as for the details, I don't really know what they are. for what, but it would be, it has in the past that the Minister of Seniors' Housing has come down and officially opened Seniors Week at the host community. And then there's a number of events in celebration of Seniors Week that go on over the course of the week.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Armfeldt, any idea how many communities might be approved to be co-host? Every community in Alberta or just a few?
I believe just one or two. I think the intent of this is that the official opening of Seniors Week would go to only one or two communities, and then the minister would come down and actually be the opening, put a meeting on and a press conference to actually open Seniors Week then.
And actually, the minister was here a couple of years ago, I believe, right? For one of the opening kickoff events there, and so I'm not sure how that netted a visit in that result if we weren't a co-host, but for whatever reason she did attend here and did speak and attend one of the opening related functions at that time.
Seniors Week is celebrated in the town of Taber and around the town of Taber, but with this, then there's just more of a focus on the provincial aspect of Seniors Week being brought to the town.
Councillor Bruin.
Would Department of Recreation be involved with this, or is it like, can we handle it if we decide to do this? It's not a lot of extra work, or is it?
It's really a fair amount of coordination work, venues and people and advertising. I don't think it's out of our scope. We've got our arts, culture, and events coordinator that would look after it within the recreation department if council directed us to put an application in forward and we were successful.
Thank you.
Mr. Towns?
Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
That council choose to submit an expression of interest for seniors to host Seniors Week.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? Councillor Bruin?
Strongly support that.
All right. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried now. Good. Thank you. Item 6.4, intermunicipal collaboration GIS update. Mr. Armfeldt.
Yeah, Ms. Monks can come up and present the details of the next one. Ultimately, this is a intermunicipal initiative under the Oldman River Regional Services Commission, where there's probably about 20 or 25 municipalities that all 45 that all go in together and contribute to our GIS program. So go ahead, Ms. Monks.
Yes, Your Worship, members of council. Oldman River Regional Services supplies our GIS services to the town of Taber as well as 44 other municipalities. They're currently working to upgrade the platform that they use to Esri, which is one that the town is interested in continuing with. So this will provide a much better software option for the town that enhances our mapping, saves us time and money that we might otherwise pay a consultant to complete some of this work for us. So ORSC is applying for an intermunicipal collaboration grant in order to reduce the costs for each of its member municipalities. And they requested that each municipality provide them with the resolution that's been provided in your RFD. So if council is able to provide those two resolutions, they'll be included in the application package and better the chances of the grant being successful.
All right. Thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Thames?
Yes, Philip. All the communities around us are part and parcel of this Oldman River. We're there's only one or two of us that are not in that, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I thought. Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
Council authorizes the town of Taber to participate in an application for the 2020 Oldman River Region GIS Enhancement Project submitted by the town of Coldo under the intermunicipal collaboration component of the Alberta Community Partnership Grant. There's that long sentence.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.5. Pardon me? Oh,
There's a second part to that.
Oh, yes, there is. Okay. Someone
Ready to proceed with the second motion on that.
All right.
Council directs the town of Taber participant agrees to abide by the terms of the conditional grant agreement governing the purpose and the use of grant funds.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.5, updates on PW annexation implications. Mr. Armfield.
At the last council meeting, administration brought quite the list of required duties commensurate with the annexation. This is one that council has given administration direction on in the past. Really impacts the snow removal efforts at the trout pond location is what the focus of this is. Council has directed administration in the past not to clear that snow path during the winter, but to leave it open for use when it's available and not in a snowy condition. I believe we have amended the policy as per that direction. This is council's opportunity now to actually input that into policy, official policy. Administration is here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Comments? Comments? No questions? Councilor Brewer.
Mayor. We're not, with this, we're not implying we're cleaning the trail around the trout pond, or is it just the parking lot and pathway?
It's actually neither of them, Your Worship. Through His Worship to Councillor Bruin. Actually, the way we've set up the procedure currently does not include the driveway to the trout pond or the trout pond pathway itself.
Okay, by the driveway, do you mean the road we go out there with, or driveway is where?
So technically, it is not a road yet. That is another of the tasks that we have assigned to us. So we're referring to it as a driveway. It's currently a private driveway into that trout pond. So it's rather long, and it's that entire road. But because we haven't gone through that formal process to create the road allowance, it is currently just a driveway.
Follow-up question to that. Did we clean the road for the dog park out there before, or it's just new? Like we've never cleaned the road before?
It's currently done only when there's staff available. So once the rest of the road clearing is done and the snow event has passed, if Public Works has time, then they'll go out and complete that road.
Okay, so it's a low priority.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Prepared to make a motion. A move that council accept the Public Works update for information.
All right, I guess I had a question myself and or comment. We did have an ask at Coffee with Council here not too long ago, and I've had a few asks about the same thing, about the trout pond circle clearing. So I guess they're presuming that would be the roadway would be clear. As I understand it, and as I've seen, the road is generally cleared fairly regular at some point, and the access, unless we get a foot of snow or something, there's other priorities obviously. But to me, I think at some point that needs to be done, as has been in the past, and or to seriously look at that trail, and or some work with the parking lot. There's so much activity out there. The ice fishermen, the walkers, the dog walkers, some runners even. So to me, I don't know that's necessary to do the trail from the pond down to the landfill roadway area and beyond. But I believe that 2.5 kilometers around the trail is a reasonable ask. And due to the amount of activity there, and the trail itself in the community is very well used. It is, and that particular new location is that much more well used. So I don't know that. I think we'd be in neglect if we didn't look at doing that. And I'll look at some of the figures there that what it would cost there, and I still think you look at priorities and different snow removal areas there, but I think at some point there should be some kind of maintenance there. With the expectation of the other trails are being maintained and open. And I believe if you were to do the numbers there's more people using that location than the rest of the trail system currently. So I think that's probably key going forward. Councillor Chavez.
Worship, why don't we let administration take over that private roadway and do what they got to do before we go to the next step, let's not jump the gun here. It's
Just
something
some,
we're
some
into the
comments,
spring now. So
food for thought here, but
yeah, no, and
Yeah.
but like Phil said there, it's a matter that they're looking at turning that from a private road into a municipal road. So let's let those wheels
Okay.
take place.
Fair enough. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Good. Thank you. Item 6.6, Health and Safety Policy 2020 Annual Review. Mr. Armfield.
Yeah, Mr. Dusky will present this one. This is an annual update compliant with the occupational health and safety regulations.
Afternoon, Council, Your Worship. Before you is the Health and Safety Policy 2020 Annual Review. There's been no changes to the previous year or edits or anything. So,
All right. Thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Towns?
I don't have a question, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
In accordance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act, the Town of Taber endorses the Municipal Health and Safety Policy C-4 for 2020 and approves the signing of this document by the Mayor and the Chief Administrative Officer.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Item 6.7, Recognition of Service, Elected Officials and Board Members Policy. Mr. Armfield.
Ms. Brennan is going to come up and present some changes she's made to this policy in light of some changes in the municipality. Go ahead.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Since the Combative Sports Commission no longer exists, it no longer exists in this new policy. And because the Arts and Heritage Committee is new, it's new in this policy. And those were the only changes that were made.
All right. Thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Firth.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council approves recognition of service, elected officials, and board members policy C-3 as presented.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6.8, Fire Department Recognition of Service, POC firefighters. Mr. Armfield.
There's, I believe, 3 policies to go through tonight that involve the fire department. 2? Okay, then Chief Munshaw and Captain Swarbrick will be handling these for you. Go ahead, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Armfield. Mayor, Council, thank you very much for hearing from us. Good afternoon. What you've got in front of you, the first policy that we had a look at was from implementation in 2011. It was, as we found, fairly current. There was one major change that we substituted the words paid on call for volunteer. It just better reflects what our service is. That was really the only changes we made.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you. It's very clear. I'll make a motion that council approves the proposed recognition of the service paid on-call firefighters policy, pros-fire-1 as presented.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And on to item 6.9, Fire Department Uniform Policy. Mr. Armfield.
Go ahead, Mr. Swarbrick.
Mr. Armfield. This policy was, as you can see from your package, slightly more dated. It was existing from 1984. The fire service has changed a little bit in 36 years. So we did update the policy to reflect how we are currently operating. We did contact some of the other municipalities, and they are a little bit all over the board. Some have policies, some don't. But what we've presented to you is how we currently operate.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Firth.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council approves the proposed fire department uniform policy pros-fire-2 as presented.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 6.10, policies proposed for repeal. Mr. Armfield.
This is one more for Mr. Dusky.
Good afternoon again. So, formal inspection directive number 04-09-09-01. We would like to repeal and replace with Health and Safety Program formal directive. It's a formal inspection directive revision with the revision date of June 20th, 2019.
All right. Thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Garner.
I can make that motion, Your Worship. The council repeals formal inspection directive number 04-09-09-01.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 611, policy proposal for repeal. Mr. Armfelt.
Yes, here we have the fire hat trick. I knew there was 3 tonight. So there's a couple more that are just being repealed here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Armfelt. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we have 2 policies up for repeal. The first one is the fire hydrant department connection policy that is now reflected within the Alberta Fire Code and Alberta Building Code, which no longer needs a policy for the town of Tabor. The second one is the protective services for ambulance services. We haven't supported the administration of ambulance since 2013 and no longer require them us to be management of those personnel on events throughout the community. So both those are open for comments.
Great, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone care to make the first motion? Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the council repeals fire hydrant fire department connections policy 62M-83427.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And the second motion requirement? Councillor Tams.
Mr. Mayor, with the council repeals protective services at community events policy pros-AMB-1.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 612, department reports. And I will start them off in order. And if you have a question, just please stop me accordingly. First one, HR activity report. Finance activity report. Fire department report. Engineering and Public Works report. Public Works Treatment Facilities report. Councillor Bruin.
I have a question here, Mr. Mayor. The AEP requesting public notice for approval renewal of the Tabor Waterworks system. No issues there at all. It's all coming nice.
Yeah, this is coming up at the next information for council item. Yeah, this is a standard procedure for getting our designation through Alberta Environment and Parks to allow to distribute water to the residents again. So there'll be a notice, I believe it's early in February when it has to be advertised. Yep, but it's standard procedure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. On to January 2020 Plan and Economic Development report. Administrative Services report. CAO activity report. Recreation activity report. No further questions. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Garner.
I can make that motion, Your Worship. The council accepts the department reports for information.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 614, Mayor and Council reports. All right, let's start with Councillor Firth.
Sir, I believe we have one more.
Did I miss one?
Information for council.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I did. I got checked off, but blew by it. All right, information for council, Mr. Armfelt.
A couple of items. One is one that Councillor Bruin was just talking about. This is standard procedure to officially recognize our water treatment and distribution network again. So that will be in the Tabor Times on February the 5th. It's standard procedure. If you want to get a little more granular, I'm sure Mr. Lahiji can fill us in. But it's just part of the requirements for the permitting for that one. The second one, I'm not sure if maybe Mr. Oro would like to have some comments. We have always had inquiries from people who wish to pay their taxes on their credit card. There's a significant benefit from an air miles perspective if you were to put that large of a transaction on your credit card. That does come to a penalty to the town, though, every time somebody uses a credit card. So there has been a tool that's been created and is being used by other municipalities called Option Pay, such that if you choose to use your credit card for town transactions, you certainly can do that, but the town is not liable for that penalty, I guess, or the privilege for allowing you to use your credit card, that opportunity cost goes back to the user, not the town.
I understand that correctly. A person has a $100 bill, Visa or MasterCard's going to charge just the 2%. The $100 bill is now going to be $102 to the person that wants to pay with a credit card.
Not speaking to the exact amounts, but yes, that is exactly the idea. Yes. The overage that the town would be liable for now goes back to the individual using the card.
Just for clarification, I believe it's an 8 or 10% add-on, is it not?
Yeah, I believe it's 8 actually. Mr. Orbaugh, is that what it is?
Sounds right. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is it 8% add-on?
I believe it's 8%.
I think 3 is more logical.
Charge of $2, but I think it goes up to about 3%. So it calculates. The tool actually calculates.
Maybe just if we could speak into the microphone for the benefit of the viewers at home.
I think just to expand a little bit on what we just talked about, it's very simple. Now, what happens here is for a credit card holder who wants to pay taxes or wants to pay utilities, all you need to do is to put in your credit card number, and after putting the information, the payment amount is there. And then the option pay the load fees we are talking about kicks out, and is that particular. That's why we say there's no cost. So is the customer who's supposed to pay or incur that 8.87%. Now, when you go to the types, for the town of Taber, we've decided to start piloting this one with a few. I think we'll start with utilities. We'll go with taxes. So the advantage is, if you go to, let's say you click on the utilities, it'll ask you for your account number, you put it there and you process. If you go to the taxes, if you're paying your taxes, the moment you hit the taxes on the payment type, it will ask you for the roll number. So you just put it in there and you'll be able to pay out. Now, we also know that within the community, there's some people probably that might be struggling and might not have the computers at home. So those ones, if they come in here, we'll walk them through the process such that even in the future, if they have a chance to be in the library to pay their bills, they should be able to do the same. So this way, we give them the option of using their credit card at their own convenience at their homes.
Mr. Bruin?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, directed to Mr. Oro. So there's an 8% charge to pay these? I'm not clear on that.
No, it's not 8% charge.
It's about 3%. This is an example that was entered right into the tool. So if you look at the fee of $250 and then the percentage ends up changing as the value goes up. So it calculates automatically. Yes.
Okay. I think it's long overdue, actually. Lots of people like to pay online. So.
All right.
This is something that's been brought to council before, and council has always not gone this way because of that charge that we would lose out of our reserves for the benefit of having somebody pay with their credit card. So ultimately, this puts the fee back on the user,
right? Not
on the municipality.
Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. From my perspective, if there's no cost to the town, how people pay is up to them.
Correct. Yes, I would agree. All right. Thank you. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Thames.
Mr. Mayor, that council accepts the material received in this agenda item as information.
Great, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Great, thank you. Now we're on to Mayor and Council reports, and again, we'll start with Councillor first, please.
Mr. Mayor, I attended all meetings I was required to attend. Also the Chamber Annual Dinner and Awards. I just wanted to say congratulations to all the award recipients. Bruce Workington, Saunders Insurance, and Carmo Grady, and it was a really nice evening recognizing all of those individuals and organizations. Also attended Coffee with Council and Pillows and Pajamas at the Taber Public Library, which was a family literacy event. I got to read some stories to some families.
Thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report. I've been under the weather for the last 8 days or so, but I'm coming back.
All right. Good. Thank you. Councillor Thames.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, don't have a whole lot to report. I missed one meeting and I had a way more important thing to do because that day was the day that I happened to be married to my lovely wife for 40 years. So I thought she might have been a little bit more important to take out for dinner. So,
well, thank you and congratulations, Councillor Thames.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Garner.
I wasn't able to attend the Chamber Awards night. Unfortunately, I was out of town on a family matter, but attended Coffee with Council and have tried to be at all the meetings necessary. So,
Councillor Chavez.
Yes, Your Worship. Again, I also attended the chamber event, which was very well done, very nicely done. And been doing some training with Councillor Bruin here with the Police Commission, as we have a variety of new members that need to go do a little bit more extra training for them. That's about it.
Thank you, Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also attended the chamber dinner, and it was great. Very worthwhile award winners. And I've attended Highway 3 meetings, Coffee with Council, of course, which is, I'd like to see more people show up for that, and meetings with the Police Commission to keep that going forward.
All right, thank you. And for myself, January is a very busy month as well. A couple of different joint council meetings attended. Also attended the chamber dinner event, and my congratulations also to all the well-deserving members, and well-attended event. I believe it was close to sold out, was it not? Also last week, myself and Mr. Armfield attended the presidents of the AMA Summit in Edmonton, a 2-day event that was very worthwhile and beneficial. Roughly 200 people attended from across the province. And also attended some Coffee with Council, and that would be my report. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Bruin.
Can I hear your report on the President's Summit?
Well, how much time you got?
Oh, let's hear the details.
I'll just give you the nutshell. It's going to be online very quickly. There was basically went into breakout sessions. There was some brainstorming done on basically dealing with the fiscal restraints we're all facing now with the new UPC government, and just how we're going to deal with that, and some ideas on how to weather the storm, so to speak. So that was a full day of information sessions like that, and presentations at the individual Thursday meeting, and it will be available online within the next month, I believe. Did they say, Mr. Armfield?
Yeah, it usually doesn't take them very long to put those presentations online.
So again, there was roughly 200 people there, and a lot of really good comments, a lot of good ideas, and hopefully some of these can come to fruition, and so our UCP government can understand where we're all coming from, and hopefully come up with some viable solutions for all concerned and for the benefit of the entire province. That would be the nutshell version. There's a lot more to it than that, Councillor Bruin, but that would be my brief nutshell version for you.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
All right, thank you. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Tams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that council accepts the mayor and councilor's report as presented.
Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And next would be your delegations. Oh, sorry. Geez, check that one off also. All right, just one more. Standing item, council requests. Mr. Armfield.
This is the opportunity that council has to ask administration any questions or give us any direction through the form of a motion.
All right. Any new standing item requests, Councillor Garner?
I just have a question. I'm just wondering how the progress is coming on assembling those picnic tables and precasting those concrete bases for spring installation.
Probably Public Works would be the best to.
They are out there and they're still waiting to be assembled, but you will be as soon as the weather allows.
Good. Thank you.
All right. And nothing else, and a couple things ongoing, but there's really nothing more.
Yeah, the list is there in front of you. We'll be taking the latter one off, satisfied that one at this council meeting. And the other two, administration is actually working on the other two as we speak, with regards to hosting the Japan Twinning relationship celebration in 2021.
All right, thank you. And any new items? arising. Anybody has? All right. No required motion. We were good to go with everything else, correct?
Yep, if you're satisfied.
All right. Then we are on to our delegation next, which is a 5 p.m. start. So I'd ask for an adjournment till 5 p.m. Councilor Bruin.
I can make the adjournment till 5 p.m., please.
All right. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Huh? I'm scared you might take the whole box.
All right, give a motion to reconvene the meeting, please. Councillor Tamps, motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And first up is item 7, delegations. Delegation Kinsman Club of Tabor proclamation requests. Mr. Armfelt.
Mr. Todd Pickrell is here from the Kinsmen Club to make a presentation to council. If you could step up and please speak into the microphone. Yes, sir.
Stand or sit, whichever you like.
Well, I can stand. I'm going to be very brief. I'm just going to give you a brief history on Kin Canada and our local club, and then a short explanation of what Kin Canada is asking us to do. So Kin Canada was founded on February 20th, 1920 in Hamilton, Ontario. Today it consists of more than 400 clubs across Canada, Kinsmen clubs, Kinnett clubs, and Kin clubs, with a total of over 6,000 members. Since its inception in 1920, Kin Canada clubs have contributed, donated more than $1 billion to Canadian communities and causes and individuals in need, as well as to disaster relief outside of our borders, outside of Canada. Our particular club was chartered on January 21st, 1972, so we've been around a while too. We currently consist of 17 members. I wish I had the numbers that our club has contributed since its inception, but our record keeping is not quite as good as Kin Canada's, I guess. So I don't have a total for that. Kin Canada has launched an initiative. They're calling it Founders Day, the 100th anniversary of Kin Canada. So they're asking member clubs to approach their local municipalities and proclaim February 20th, 2020 as Kin Canada Day, as well as the week of the 16th to the 22nd as Kin Canada Week. And I believe that paperwork, an example proclamation was provided. I've got a copy here if you need another one. In addition to that, Kin Canada has asked us to possibly do a flag raising as well. Our club has chosen not to do that. They sent us a flag, but we don't want to. We've had controversy with flags in Tabor in the past, so we chose not to ask you guys to do that. So we'll do something different with the flag. So yeah, we're simply just asking for the town of Tabor to proclaim February 20th, 2020 as Kin Canada Day, and the week of the 16th to the 22nd as Kin Canada Weekend. If we'll put that on our website, and we would ask that the town sort of advertise that on your website as well, and we'll have some kind of a photo op with the mayor possibly on Founders Day of February 20th. So that's what we're asking.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pickrell. Any questions arising? Just a clarification question. If you had an actual location that you prefer to do this, or would you like to come to council chambers to take care of that?
We actually haven't thought about that, Andy, so if you want
this would be suitable for you here if we did this here?
Sure.
For whatever time we can agree on?
Yep.
On the date in question, that's February the 20th, correct?
Yes.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Councillor Tams.
I don't have a comment. I'm prepared to make the motion.
All right.
That council proclaims Thursday, February 20th, 2020 to be declared Kin Canada Day in Tabor, and that council proclaims the week of February 26th to 22nd, 2020 to be declared Kin Canada Week, and council participates in a photo opportunity with the Kinsmen Club of Tabor representatives selling the proclamation, and directs Mayor Prokop to sign the official proclamation document.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
All right, on to item 7.2, RC Strategies Recreation Master Plan. Mr. Armfelt.
Yes, I believe Ms. Phillips, are you going to come up and do a bit of a bio on Mr. Parks and get him started?
So as you are, good afternoon, Council, Mr. Mayor. As you're all aware, we've been working on this master plan since last year. In November, we had RC Strategies come in and present the draft plan to Council, the rec board, to our user groups who were interviewed. We also put it on our website and on social media, emailed, I believe, our rec board, just as a reminder to see if anyone had any input. So we now have the final plan we are bringing forward in hopes to adopt this plan for direction for the the recreation department. So I have Mr. Parks here to do a presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council for providing us with an opportunity to walk through the presentation. I think you did have the two documents as part of your package as well as this, and so I'm not going to belabor it at all, but I did want to take the opportunity just before I started here to give a thanks to so many people in the community here. So the master plan itself is based on a thorough program of research, and to actually come up with it required some significant participation from a number of people in your community, and I just think it's at this point it's really worthwhile to recognize a bunch of the residents in the community who participated in the development of the plan through participation in surveys. There was a number of different groups who came out and provided their input through presentations to us. We had a number of meetings and interviews that we had set up as well. We did have a survey that we fielded, and the Recreation Committee was involved in a couple of steps, and then certainly you as a body did participate. Administration also was significant, and just wanted to formally recognize here tonight the efforts of Don Phillips and Marty Planger, who helped us along the way, particularly as it came to liaising with the community. And so we couldn't have done it without them, and I just wanted to recognize all of the people, including yourselves and members of the public, for that. Yeah, I can do that. What am I just scroll? Okay. So a brief outline. Want to review what a recreation master plan is. Should be no surprises with any of these things, but I do want to just take a moment to speak about what the plan is. We did have a process that should be familiar to you on how we came up with the recommendations. There were a couple of things that have happened in the interim, and Ms. Phillips spoke about that, but I did want to just make mention of that and then do a quick little walkthrough of what those recommendations are. That's quick. So I guess the main point I wanted to talk here about is what really is a master plan. High-level strategic document. So we do have some, I would call them tools and frameworks in here that are a little bit more prescriptive, but really the intent of the plan is to provide some form of direction. And so tried to relay that with the picture there, is sort of thinking of the master plan as the guardrails down the road. And so it does say this is the direction that we're going. So I did mention there are some specifics when it comes to tools and frameworks, but really it's saying this is the direction we're going to go, and then it's leaving it up to the town, certainly the administration, but even council and the rec board has a part in this as well, to say specifically how we're going to get there. And the circumstances within which it gets implemented really are local decisions, so some things can happen. That might change some of the timing. Circumstances might change in terms of groups in the community, and just while we were waiting for this to sort of get going again and get to these delegations, we're just chatting there, and it sounds like there's even a group coming together that's coalesced around trails, and so that was something that for sure is new since we've even developed this, and those things can happen. And so the idea is we'll be providing some direction through this plan, and then it's up to administration primarily and the rec board to implement. A little bit of a busier diagram, but I guess the intent on this is there was a bunch of information that was collected that formed the basis of the master plan itself. So we did do, I alluded to a program of engagement. So we did field a survey with households in the community. We did talk to a number of perspectives, certainly groups that are delivering services, but even others. And so I did have, for example, a session with representatives from the school jurisdiction, some local principals, and even some from district office. We did have an architect do an assessment of the facility, and we just looked at how the facilities were being used. So the point here on this is we did a lot of information to get to know your community, to help us come to the development of the plan itself. There are two documents, you'd know that from your package, the research document and then the master plan itself. There used to be one single document, and it just frankly was overbearing to have so much pages into one thing. The other reason to break them apart is the master plan itself is really a tool for you as the town to take and get your direction from that. The research report is something that I think for sure the town can make some use of, different departments in the town, but even the community I think can find some information in there that they'll find, excuse me, a little frog in my throat here. There's some information that members of the community will find, I think, interesting and maybe even instrumental in some of the planning that they do. And so it made sense to break them into to 2 different documents. So in terms of the review, so since we last met with you, we presented there. I think you'll recall I had my colleague Ryan Schwartz with me, and we talked about the plan there. So we presented that as a draft, worked with administration to make any changes that we needed to do. And then I think significantly we did have a public review. So we did extend an invitation out to organizations in the community who were part of the development of the plan. So we had 15 to 20 come out on December 11th, and we actually walked them through the draft plan in a similar manner as we did with you. And solicited some comment from them. There was an online review period as well, and so we had the draft material online, asked for some feedback if people had it through an online questionnaire. The second part on this slide just talks about the Taber Fire Inspection Report. So the last time we were here, we did make mention that the ACI, the architects that we had on our team, did identify a couple of concerns that they had with those 2 spaces in the rec center, and from that, there was a couple of inspections done through the fire department of those 2 spaces. And so the architects did raise some concerns about some exiting of the spaces and even something around the air circulation. And then the 2 inspection reports that were done from the Taber Fire Department said that there aren't any safety concerns at all with the facility. So that's good news. The ACI, the architecture report that we did have appended to the research report when we met with you at that time, we've actually taken it out. We do have these 2 inspection reports as part of the appendix to the research report. The architectural report we have it, and the town does have that document, but we just thought that we wouldn't have it appended directly to the research report. So a quick walk through the master plan itself. So here's the mission. It's the mission of the department itself, and we wanted to carry it forward into the master plan. A couple things of significance in there. It talks about providing opportunities to people, and certainly as a community building aspect, and tying it to quality of life for residents in the area. The master plan then goes on, and I'll walk through it quite quickly here. With recommendations in 2 areas. About one is infrastructure and the second is service delivery. So, excuse me. In terms of infrastructure, a number of them here, I've got 2 I just wanted to highlight on this particular slide. So one is about guiding principles for infrastructure. So as you start looking at maybe developing any new, part of this is suggesting that we should look at sustaining or decommissioning what you have before looking at new. And so we go on later and we speak a little bit about, your next new facility might be an indoor field type of space, but really you need to look at sustaining what you have. And there's even that connection to that small rink. And I think we talked about that to some degree the last time we met here about doing some investment in that facility, which I'll reflect a little bit in the next couple of slides here. So some principles in terms of maintaining and managing your infrastructure. In terms of the maintenance of it there, we did talk in the master plan about having a budgeting process in place to maintain the infrastructure. And it's not to suggest that you don't, but we wanted to reaffirm that. And a couple of numbers that did pop up that I just wanted to reference here. One is in the community center that within the next 5 years, there's about $1.3 million that should be invested in there. And then in the Aquafund Center, excuse me, in that next 5 years, about $270,000. We did put in there, I guess, some considerations for when it comes to prioritization of facilities. So it's not unusual that a municipality would have a number of different infrastructure projects come forward looking for some level of support. And what we've provided you with here are some criteria to actually have a structured conversation about what you might prioritize over others. And so sometimes what has happened in various communities is it's those groups that bring a project forward that maybe are able to rally more of the community for something, or maybe make a little bit more noise, or tap you on the shoulder when you're doing your grocery shopping. And what we've said is there's some criteria that need to be considered before you make a decision. And excuse me, those projects that meet more of these criteria than others would rise to the top. We did talk about a structured process, and this would more formalize the role of the Recreation Board as it comes to ideas coming forward from the community. So the idea here is any ideas coming forward from the community wouldn't specifically come just to this body to council. They would go to the Rec Board with some information that they've provided. I guess I would call it sort of an earlier assessment of that particular idea. The Rec Board would make a determination on whether they thought it was worthwhile to bring forward to council. At that point, you would make a decision on whether you felt it was worthwhile to pursue again. And then some more information would be developed, and we would call that a feasibility analysis. And then from that, then a determination would be made on whether it needed to proceed or not. A couple other specific things for infrastructure. I did mention the small ice arena, so we're suggesting that it should be sustained. Invest in safety and modernization. There was actually a fair bit of support from that in the community, and by investing in that, it saves a really significant ticket item of developing another one, which if you went down that road would kind of, I think, tie your hands financially to do maybe the indoor dryland facility, which really we think is the next major infrastructure development.
I just ask you a question about what exactly you refer to sustaining the small ice, and what exactly that entails with your recommendation.
Yeah, so there was a study that was done, an engineering study that was done that spoke about some of the specifics involved in there, and apologize, Your Honor, that right at this moment I can't recall specifically what those are, but some of it had to do with, I think, even the shape of the board, so it was more able to kind of get the Zamboni in the corner there, and I think there were some concerns as well of just kind of entering and exiting, and even some of the viewing in there. So there is a specific engineering report that speaks to what some of those ideas could be in there, and for sure significantly cheaper than looking at developing new.
I guess that's just, I'm not clear on just some of the comments that were made about that, and some were speculative, I believe, about the underground, under the facility being frozen, which is speculation. I don't know if there's any tests ever done to confirm that necessarily, or if that's the case, does that mean nothing can be rebuilt there until that was thawed out accordingly?
So what it would suggest is, and from what the architects have told us, is, with that ground frozen under, that if the small ice was to be removed and then you were looking at developing another piece there, that there does become some significant site rehab work that would have to go there versus if it was just more, I guess, of a brownland site that didn't have that ice plant that had fed into it. That's the understanding that the architects have provided to me.
And back to the sustainability, you're talking about just doing some form of repair work with what we have with our existing facility to make it usable and functional in a safer capacity, basically.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, it was about a 1.6 or 1.8 million, I think, replacement for the small ice. What they were recommended as one of the three options previous, as you touched on. But any idea what kind of a upgrade you're referring to, cost-wise, that we might be looking at if that's the route we go?
I can't recall off the top of my head, and I'm hesitant to try and remember what that figure was.
I don't think I saw any figures. That's why I'm asking. You're talking about, like, this is kind of an open-ended. When you say sustainability, what does that mean? That's a very open-ended statement to me.
Right.
And what kind of scope are we looking at to meet that sustainability standard going forward?
Yeah. So to meet that. Like I said, I think the engineering assessment that was done of the facility sort of did provide a number of options, and one of them was to sustain it on the site. And I can't remember specifically what the figure was on there, but I just recall that in terms of sustaining it on there, it wasn't a real significant change to it. It was significantly less in terms of expenditure of developing a new facility there. And by investing in that, that would not, I guess, tie your hands specifically to be able to do something down the road. So unfortunately, I can't recall the specifics of what some of those specific
Unless I miss
items
it, I
were.
don't think it was ever there as far as actual figures, what we would be looking at with what you're suggesting here.
Those figures are there in the report.
If you look at page 9 on the report, it gives a really good breakdown of that.
Number 9?
Page 9. Talks about option 1, direct replacement. And these were based on a consultant's investigation,
Okay, I know,
2017.
yeah, that's right.
And
But
then
where's the figures?
option 2 would be a full size for over $5 million. So it's kind of a.
Well, I think the gentleman just confirmed that he's talking about the sustainability didn't mean replacing the small ice entirely. He's talking about making it usable and functional.
It says direct replacement.
I know that's what the original report was, but from these gentlemen we're talking about sustainability recommendation with the current facility. And that's my question as far as what does that mean exactly? What kind of price tag are we looking at for that, and what does it involve to meet that sustainability? This report, this is a report that was done previous, right, by MPE. The 3 options you're looking at, right?
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. That's an MPE, 3 options.
Right.
But we just went through with this gentleman talking about maintaining the sustainability of the current facility. That didn't mean replacing the full small ice, correct?
No, it didn't.
That's my point. I don't know what that means or what that entails or what kind of price tag we'd be looking at with your best recommendation to.
Yeah, the architectural assessment, the ACI report, they've gone through the facility and they've come up with a number of figures that would speak specifically to what it would take to address sort of that sustainability, to be able to continue to use it. And like I said, right now I'm hesitant to just
So you
say
remember
what that
some figure
is.
being in there suggesting that?
Yeah,
Somewhere?
so they would have in their document, so.
There it is.
So this is from the earlier study that you were speaking about from the engineering one, but the architects in that ACI report have gone through and done the assessment, and in there they specify when they're talking about things about like the pad, excuse me, whether they're talking about the envelope of the building, and they've broken it down into sort of short, medium, and long-term figures. And so that's where that number would be in. And unfortunately, I don't have it broken out specifically here to the arena from that ACI report.
So with those figures, that's anywhere from 1.6 million to 3.1 million for a length of time that this may last for sustainability?
No.
Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've got to make it clear, I believe, that those numbers are from MPE. Those are previous reports that are just referenced here for the benefit of
the 2017 figure.
That's
yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
So I remember at a meeting, I believe it was a recreation board meeting, that the architectural firm, ACI, is it?
ACI, yes.
Mentioned a number of $350,000 to do some renovation on the small ice arena. Not replacing the brine, not replacing the ice, but just do some renovation, not beyond cosmetics, but like you said about the boards, better viewing area, better egress and entry, I think. So that's what was mentioned. But I don't think we should belabor the point, Mr. Mayor, here, because I think the report is available. The ACI report is available.
It's available.
The
yeah.
town has copies of that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So let's get on with it.
So I apologize, Your Honor, about not having those figures right in my mind here. But as the councillor has mentioned, the ACI report, which is the architect's assessment of that facility, is something that the town does have. So we had that appended in the research report, and I just have it pulled out. It's a separate document that the town does have, and it does break it down fairly specifically according to a whole variety of different things, and they've attached figures to it that are short, medium, and long term.
Hitting some of the red flag areas, not the whole facility.
Oh, okay. So you have it here, yeah. So as you'd mentioned, Councillor, your memory's much better than mine.
I don't
so
believe it. What page is that on?
This was presented in November.
This is something different.
It's actually not
okay.
on the research report here. Just summarizes it. This one actually has a total of $635,000. Is what was recommended by ACI to deal with the life safety issues. That's what they rate under there. Sorry, life safety, priority, life expectancy, and is that right?
Yeah, and so they just go through and they break that out, and the report's good, and it does provide that detail on that. There's more photographs than you could think anybody could take of any facility. They have that in there along with the commentary that goes along with the numbers that are provided in this table that Ms. Phillips is just sort of showing me. So the town does have that document.
That,
yes.
that would be helpful to view that at some point then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect. Thank you.
So did talk about a couple of other parts on here, and so down below the lease agreements, just ensuring that lease spaces are properly maintained. It speaks a little bit about reporting in there, so you have a number of those. And then we provided some principles in there for the development of parks from, connectivity, affordability, and then environmental stewardship. Excuse me. A number of recommendations on service delivery. So speaking about volunteerism and community groups, there is some overlap there. Many of your community groups are operated by volunteers and are significant elements of the delivery system. And so the last thing you want is a bunch of volunteer groups or groups that are delivering programming to fold up or struggle. So I suggest providing some support to them and certainly supporting and encouraging volunteerism. And sometimes those go hand in hand. There is some overlap. The town does have a number of partnerships. And so we've suggested here that it's important to strengthen those current ones and maybe develop some new ones. So there are finite resources that everybody has, and if you can work on those together, that's ideal. And so obvious partnerships are with the MD that you would have here and that you can work on and strengthen, and even looking at with the schools and perhaps developing a joint use agreement. And then the value of the community events themselves, we've reflected in here. We think they're important to continue on. A couple on here, a couple more. So programming. Expand and delivery of direct programs. So this actually came out with some of the planning with just specifically to the with the rec department. So there was some suggestion that some arts and culture programming might be needed, but even some after school programming for youth and adult programming, looking for some more opportunities there. There can be some groups that might be developing those things, but I think there's an opportunity to fill gaps that the town might have. And so the suggestion on that is to continue to understand what the needs are of the community. And there might be a group that might be willing to offer some other programs that they aren't right now that you've determined through this study or through some subsequent work. And if those don't exist, then maybe there's some opportunity to do some specific programming, and maybe even some of that programming is in the parks themselves. The arts and culture fits a little bit into the programming as well, but it's to provide some support. So there is a lease facility here that does provide support to those to that particular community, and we're saying to continue on with that. And then the awareness of opportunities. You've got some good mechanisms here, but often groups are trying to do some of the promotion themselves, and so it can become a little bit onerous if you're just a member of the community trying to find out where things are at and what some programming are, and maybe to do a little bit more joint promotion of some of those things and lever all of those efforts together. The data and information is just really referring to and talking about collecting useful information to help you make informed decisions. Sometimes there's a lot of activity around collecting information, how many people are in the program, that kind of thing. And I think what you want to do is be purposeful as you collect that information and figure out what you're really going to be using it for. And so it's good to know how many people are in your program, but you might be interested to know how many are in the program that maybe are representing a certain cultural group in the community. Maybe there are newcomers to town that you're interested to find out about that. So there's lots of different ways to gather that, even utilization information. Tricky places that most communities have is getting information on, for sure, those spontaneous use things. It'd be good to know how many people are actually using your trail system, and so try to collect some of that information through our survey. So it's just being purposeful on the information that you're collecting. And then the last one talks about aligning subsidy levels with community benefit. And really at the heart of that is it's sort of saying, let's take a bit of a philosophical approach or include that in there when we start looking at fee setting. And so we want to attach greater subsidy with greater benefit. And you'd see that generally if you look at rates. Typically youth rates are less expensive than adult rates, and by doing that you're making a philosophical statement that says that you want to support youth in activities. And so the idea with this is to try and take that lens as you go and set fees and not get caught up with the notion of just solely on cost recovery or trying to hit certain levels of cost recovery, but to think a little bit more about what you're trying to achieve by offering these services and set the fees based on that. So for example, some communities, and I'm not suggesting you're doing this, but some communities have said, hey, we really strongly believe in the need for all kids in our community to know how to swim. So some places that are maybe on a lake, and so then they've really changed their rates for swim lessons in that community than maybe some others have, because they believe strongly in it. So there's lots of ways to do it. You are able to set your own fees in the manner that you wish, and I think part of it is to think about what some of those benefits are to it. So a quick walkthrough on that. Once again, Your Honor, I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question as quickly, and fortunately Ms. Phillips had the numbers there, but that's the quick run through, and I think really a reminder to you about what the document was, and just wanted to let you know that we had done the review with a number of the community groups and had a good turnout in the discussion with them that evening, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Garner.
Make that motion, Your Worship. The Council endorses the Recreation Master Plan as presented by RC Strategies and directs administration to utilize the report as a guiding document for budgeting and operations within the Recreation Department.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Good. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to item 8, media inquiries. Tabor Times, Trevor.
So my question would be, just with the announcement from the Chamber last week regarding the purchase of a piece of property for a new building for them, I'm just seeking the purchase price or the cost of that property for the community here.
They can give that. That's we had no trouble releasing that. That became available as soon as the purchase went through, correct?
That's correct, yeah, for the purchase of both properties.
So I believe it was a market value total for both parcels. Was it a 904 total?
Correct, yes.
So was it broken down in two by chance or not?
In the assessed report, it was broken down into two. And Ms. Monks, do you remember, it was like, I want to say 440 and...
440 and 464 in the ballpark. The total is definitely 904, Trevor, but I'm not sure. There is a bit of a slight breakdown. I think there's one slightly bigger than the other, right? Nothing significant, but parcels
there was
slightly
a slight
difference in size. But
those are for those two blocks of lots, essentially, from
correct.
That special meeting. I spoke to Mr. Armfeldt there earlier this week.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I can give you the I can actually give you the values. Okay, I'll just have to look on the map. Parcel 1, okay, so I'll tell you which one parcel 1 is in a second, is 443,000. And then parcel 2 was 461,000.
That's it. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, just next is closed session requirement. Need a motion to move into closed session, please. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Just ask everybody to stay by their cell phones. I'm not very mobile to go chasing people, so I'm going to use technology.